Okay. All right, everybody, welcome so much. Skip, I'm so glad you're here too. Hi, Del, the trader, glad you're here. Today, everybody, we have Tom Vozzo. He is the CEO of Homeboy Industries. I'm going to speak a little bit about Homeboy Industries and Tom. Fortunately for me, Tom just gave me 30 minutes of a video interview. And now, of course, we're coming over to Twitter space just to hopefully get more conversation going about how amazing Homeboy Industries is and what incredible work Tom is doing over there. I've asked Skip to come and be part of this conversation. Skip, I know you started to ask me something when I was talking to Tom about getting set up on here. So what was your question before, Skip? I'm sorry, I missed it.
No, I'm all good. No, it was logistics.
You're
No
good.
problem.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
All right, awesome. So just for context, everybody, I spoke to this when I did my video interview with Tom just now, but I just want everybody to have a little bit of context. Tom is the CEO of Homeboy Industries. It's the largest and most successful gang rehabilitation and reentry program in the world. Tom is a non-paid employee leading the organization. And over these past 10 years, he has tripled the size of the organization, increasing its impact. Tom's also the author of Homeboy, The Homeboy Way, a radical approach to leadership and life. And that book is an invitation to corporate America and leaders everywhere to create a new bottom line that encourages economic and racial equity. The reason I have Skip here today, there's a lot of reasons, but I asked Skip to be part of this conversation because Skip is a gentleman who suggested I read Tom's book in the first place after hearing me rave about Tattoos on the Heart, which is by Father Greg Boyle, who is the founder of Homeboy. So thank you, Skip, for being here. I'm going to mute you just temporarily. And then, Tom, I just want to welcome you to this conversation on Twitter Space. Thank you for being here.
And as for an older guy to do this Twitter thing feels pretty cool.
I'm glad. I'm very impressed that you're willing to do a Twitter space. I know it's a little bit out there for most, corporate types, but now you're a homie too. So you're gonna have to get all chic and trim. So Tom, tell those who are listening to us, I know you just did a little bit about Homeboy Industries, but for those that maybe don't know that much about Homeboy Industries, would you just let everybody know, tell us what the mission is and what Homeboy is up to?
Yeah, sure. Homeboy Industries is we're 34 years now. We're a nonprofit organization helping former felons and gang members change their life around. We help around 8,000 people a year, and we were started 34 years ago by a Jesuit priest, Father Greg Boyle. His first stop as a priest was in Dolores Mission, the poorest parish of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, and he wanted to figure out how to help end gang violence and how many lives are being destroyed. And so here we are. Greg had a vision, and it's been pretty amazing. We're a $30 million nonprofit organization. I quickly say we raise $30 million and spend $30 million. We put nearly every nickel towards the mission, and we try to help out as many people as we can.
One of the things that really drew me, Tom, to your book, The Homeboy Way, and to Homeboy in the first place is the approach that Father Greg Boyle talks about in Tattoos on the Heart, which is this radical kinship. And I would just love for you to just describe a little bit about what that is, because even though you may technically know the definition of kinship, those listening, I think it's really important to understand the way Homeboy views kinship.
Yeah, I think it's key that there's two words, radical and it's kinship. It's, I think the radical, kinship is pretty straightforward. It's about having compassion and empathy and being in relationships with people at a really authentic level. And the men and women of Homeboy, we call them trainees, they're clients. They display that all the time. And then think about at Homeboy within our building, there's in the county of Los Angeles, over 250 different gangs in the county of Los Angeles, 200,000 gang members. And yet we have people from all different gangs in our building being in kinship with each other, which kind of gives us a sense of in life, if these folks can be in kinship with a rival, we should be able to kinship with each other. And the radical part is, I think what pushes us is that, Greg has this also concept that, it's really for our benefit. If we move to be in relationship with people on the margins of our society, if we move to the margins, move to the people who are there suffering and struggling, the poor, and we be in relationship with them, being in kinship with them, it makes life much fuller and life more joyous as we go forward. And so another key word is about joy at Homeboy, and there's quite a bit of that as well.
Yeah. One of the things that is a philosophy that I've seen you talk about in your book, and Homeboy just in general, when I listen to Father Greg talk, he talks about that we shouldn't be judged and defined by the worst thing that any of us have ever done. Speak a little bit about how you see that applicable, not just at Homeboy, but in business today, in entrepreneurship today. How does that change how we create opportunity for ourselves?
Yeah, I'm going to answer that in a couple of ways. Let me first answer from a kind of a cold business kind of point of view on this, and then I'll get in more into the spiritual part of what that's about, right? And so I think here I am. I parachute in, like 26 years in the for-profit sector of our economy. For all sorts of reasons, probably more by coincidence, providence, that I sort of ended up a Homeboy, and I'm the CEO of Homeboy. And so I come in whatever year 27 of its existence, and it's really a successful organization. It helps people who are been second, third generation gang members get out of gang life of crime, don't go back in the jail system. It helps them move their life forward. So they're successful from that standpoint. And then, in part of Homeboy, we have social enterprise businesses, a bakery, a cafe, a caterer, all that stuff. And here we have Homegirl Cafe, a Zagat rated cafe in downtown Los Angeles. In downtown, there's only 8 other Zagat rated cafes or restaurants as high of a rating. And it's fully run by gang members and felons along the way. And so, listen, what society oftentimes demonizes gang members, demonizes felons, and they just want to lock them up forever. And here, if you just take the little bit of empirical side of this, if you hear that we gave them a chance, and they moved their life forward tremendously, and they're running a $2 million business all on their own. And so it's almost like an empirical evidence thing. Obviously you shouldn't be judged by the worst thing you've ever done, because you can change your life forward and move it forward in an immeasurable, better way for not just themselves, but for their children. So stop the generational cycle of violence and poverty. So that's from a empirical business point. And then obviously from a spiritual, from a understanding humans, we've all made mistakes, right? So, and luckily we've had mentors, we've had parents who loved us, who sort of helped us through those mistakes. A lot of our folks never had a parent who loved them and our mentor. And so society's kind of like, they got put into the societal system. So it's like, there's so many ways you can think about, none of us should be judged by the worst thing we've ever done. And we got to keep that mindset as we move.
Yeah. You got cut off right there at the end as we move forward. Mm-hmm. Is that what you were saying?
Yes.
Yeah. I just would like to, for a moment, invite Skip into this conversation. As I said at the start, guys, Skip is, we're both inside of an amazing community that Jawad Mian has. And in that community, we came together and shared some favorite books that we have both liked. I talked about Tattoos on the Heart, which talks about Father Greg Boyle's journey with Homeboy a little bit. And then in turn, Skip told me to read Tom's book, The Homeboy Way. But now Skip has actually gotten involved with Homeboy as a volunteer. And I would love to just have you talk a little bit about that experience. Skip, if you're willing to, you will have to unmute yourself to do that.
Hey.
Hey.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course, thanks for being here.
What they've created over there is a giant healing machine. That's what it is.
Wow.
And, it's pretty smart. So that's why I'm over there pestering people all the time. There was some sort of invitation in Tom's book about come over, do this. I'm like, all right, come over there bothering people as often as possible. And it's been, I also found this nice Sister Mary Hodges, a Dominican nun who was at your 5K. The only 5K I've ever gone to, by the way, and I survived.
Good job.
And I'm pestering her about, going to prison with her someplace, and gas is expensive in California. Let me drive you there. And, this Swami over here, Jawad, said, I had a long conversation with him one day, and he said, go see the homeboys.
Wow.
I was like, all right. And then at the same time, someone in the same community and another one of these trading communities that I talked to, I was doing some studying of ancient religions and blah, blah, blah. But he was like, cut this. I can get you to the right stuff. It's chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita called Selfless Service. And this is a topic I'd studied really my entire life, just on and off. And something clicked, and I started going down to my local Catholic church and volunteering and making sandwiches for kids. And I don't know, this, that, and the other. And honestly, if you would have told me that I was down with a bunch of felons and people at prisons, I would have thought, wow, hey, I must have become a cop in my late life and I'm arresting them or something, But
yeah,
here I am, and it's a different experience and it's a life-changing experience. So.
Yeah, Skip, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm glad you spoke to this, because a real big reason why I wanted to have Tom come here, and a lot of the inspiration behind this conversation today, is my being asked to be part of Traders for a Cause, which is something that was founded by Nathan Michaud, who runs the Investors Underground. And he started Traders for a Cause because he was so interested in seeing that traders who create such incredible success for themselves learn and understand how to be a contribution back, how to give back. And Traders for a Cause is a fully nonprofit conference to have all that money raised for the different organizations and nonprofits they advocate for. Of course, I can't wait to talk, hopefully Nate, into supporting Homeboy Industries, but I thought, well, this is my chance to really speak, hopefully with an organization that I believe in, that I want to give back to, hopefully more and more over time as my business grows. And I think, you just spoke about selfless service, Skip, and how it's spoken to in the Bhagavad Gita. But I'm just curious, for those perhaps who have not ever gotten themselves active in nonprofit, there's so much reward from that, and I just don't feel people realize it's available to them. Tell us about yours.
Well, let me tell you, I'm sort of anonymous here, right? So I'm quite familiar with the good drugs over my length of my life at various places, and this is probably the best high I've ever had. So take it from someone who spent the 90s in LA and Vegas. So
so you know what a good high
best.
feels like, in other words.
I do. And this one doesn't seem to be a hangover on this one, so it has its advantages.
Just the little bit of volunteering that you've already done there, what is it that you've learned about yourself? Like, what is it teaching you about yourself as you begin to volunteer there?
Wow. I wouldn't even call it volunteering. I'm just like hanging out.
Okay.
And, I don't know exactly what it is, but we're just hanging out.
Yeah.
Getting to know each other a little. And it's a view into a world that, it's tough.
Yeah, so do you see it increasing your empathy? Yeah, of course.
No, I just want to hop in on that because I appreciate Skip.
Oh, you just got.
Hopefully, we're inspiring people to volunteer.
Sure why.
Can you hear me now?
It's okay. We can. Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Skip, for coming and hang out. And And we thank the backbone of Homeboy Industries is our volunteer network. We have 40 doctors who volunteer in our tattoo removal clinic. We have 30 mental health professionals who volunteer hours for one-on-one therapies, umpteen number of educators. And a lot of people, and we ask people to come and help us. And I remember when I first joined Homeboy Industries, and I was sitting in Father Greg's office, and we were chatting about it, and we were talking about what's needed going forward. And again, I had all the hubris of a corporate executive. I have my list of things, list of questions and tasks. But we got into this dialogue about that. We're not broken at Homeboy. We want to evolve. We want to do better. And he said, yeah, just come, be in the community. You'll find your place. You'll find your role. But it's about being in kinship and relationship with people. And so I say that a lot when people ask me to come volunteer at Homeboy. Look, we're not for everybody. We're not the. Oftentimes, I have donors and volunteers call me up and complain that we didn't answer a phone call. Our coffee was maybe a little bit of cold. The person every day. But what I
getting cut.
is we help people get out of gang life, and it's through that mindset of being in a relationship with people that allows them to move it forward. And so I encourage everybody to go find a nonprofit, volunteer, but as Skip said, just hang out. And
Yeah.
it's if you're only making sandwiches, but you're standing next to somebody else making sandwiches, that's what it's about.
That's a miracle right there, brother.
Yeah, absolutely.
So true. So true. Tom, a couple of questions. Homeboy Industries, it really does change people's mindsets in those that are your clients, but also for the community at large. Just talk about some of the effects you've seen happen to the community and obviously to those who become clients in Homeboy.
Yeah, listen. So again, I was answering this question from two ways. Like we have positively affected thousands of people's lives going forward. And when people come through our doors, men and women who want to leave gang life behind, they're doing that because they know the life that has been awful. They know they've been abused and are abusing, and they don't want their kids to be that way. They just want a different way of going about it. And so, thankfully, Homeboy's here to help make that happen. So we've touched thousands of lives that way. I think that what Father Greg has started all those years ago and what we are today, we're a model organization for the country. I mean, our folks speak on lots of panels and we're experts. And it's like there's a whole subject matter of like gang intervention. We don't do gang intervention. We wait for them to come to us. We work with gang members, not gangs, along the way. And so we have a certain way of going about what we do. Interestingly, we're privately funded. Only 5% of our budget comes from the government. I would like it to be more, but we got to do it the government way, and we rather do it our way since we know our way is successful. We have now what's called a global Homeboy network. Well, there are over 150 organizations from around the country and the world who have modeled themselves after Homeboy Industries. And so, there's a real sort of movement in terms of how do you help people who are poor in our society, people who are demonized in our society, and how do you invest in their lives with resources and kinship to move their life forward.
Tell us, if you would, what you feel either any traders listening to us now, entrepreneurs, or just business companies in general, what can they take away from the success of Homeboy Industries, the success you've been such a part of for this past 10 years, tripling their impact? What is it that you feel you want them to walk away with?
Well, listen, so a couple of things. Thank you for asking that question. And I've been thinking a lot about this, and in part why I wrote the book, for sure. Back to what I was saying before, poverty rate in America has been the same for 45 years, same narrow band. And I think at Homeboy, what you see is people who are the working poor, people who are poor, people who are demonized, are able to transform their life because they're victims of complex trauma, but in the end they need a job, right? And so we need to get them a good job because if they get only a minimum wage job, the gang's probably going to pull them back in because they're not going to make enough money to live on, right? And so business world needs, I want the business world to hire 15% of every hire they make needs to be people who are the working poor, and bring the support resources around so that I think the for-profit world could actually do a large measure of providing good jobs and job opportunities for people. So that's like on a scale of what businesses can do. What individuals can do is, think about moving to the margins of being in a relationship with people that you didn't think you would be, and your life will be far richer for it, and you will find more joy in your life, and more balance in how you go about making decisions.
Regarding the concept of kinship and taking so much of the philosophy of the approach to business, I feel Homeboy's proving to corporations, to organizations, to leaders of organizations that business can be run. I think you called it from economic equality capitalism, that we can have this very different take of how we run our organizations. And I would love you to just talk a little bit about that, how that vibe that you had when you were in the Homegirl Cafe, you were like, ooh, this is really successful. You saw that even as you just came into the organization, sitting there that day. There is a vibe like that seems to be missing from a lot of the companies I deal with. You go into a store, you feel like people are annoyed to have to help you. So what's that philosophy that Homeboy's mastered that all of our businesses can learn from?
Yeah, well, it is what we've quote unquote mastered is this feeling of kinship, of compassion, of providing support services, that you're not defined by your job, but your job helps you in your life in terms of money, in terms of resources along the way. And so it's having that culture all throughout your business. Economic equality capitalism. It is really about, look, I worked a lot in my business world in a public company, private company owned by private equity. I work with venture capital guys, all those things. And what our society, the business society, is set up that people invest money with private equity, invest money with venture capital. And what those firms do is they make bets. They infuse capital into companies thinking and then pick which companies are going to be successful. And so what I'm trying to say is, well, let's take 5% of all that capital and let's invest that into companies that employ the people we're working with so that we can create good jobs. And I say that because I'm so clear on this. The investment world thinks they need a 15% IRR return on their money. There are plenty of businesses out there. If you only make 5% return on your money, it is a good, worthwhile business that breaks even, makes a little bit of money, and it can provide lots of jobs. And so the biggest thing we're missing for people in our society is good quality jobs. And so let's go and put capital into businesses where we can provide quality jobs for our homies, and not just homeboy homies, but other people that are in the same situation. And that's, I think, where the business world can make. And it just is a mindset of not have to be 15% return on investment. You can go back to be 5% return on investment. And since I'm on my soapbox, one more thing. And this is where I get fired up.
Yeah.
There's all this thing in the trade press around ESG. You can only, all these private equity guys are coming up with funds for ESG investment, environmental, green, all those things, right? But if your social cause is people, it is almost immoral to make money on the behalf of people if you're trying to help people. So don't put a 15% minimum return on it. Be willing to take 5%, but you're helping a lot of people along the way.
That's right.
I'll get off my
Such a good point. No, it's a good soapbox to be on. I'll give you I wish I could give you a bigger microphone. If you guys are enjoying this conversation, we only have a few minutes left with Tom, but please spread and retweet that this conversation is happening. I was hoping we would get more participants who listen and follow Homeboy Industries in this conversation, because my enthusiasm is about what Homeboy Industries is up to. And I shared this with Tom a little bit during our podcast. But part of the reason they're one of my favorite organizations is because just my own young, youth, with my mom, a single mom, struggling to really make ends meet. I really appreciate how Homeboy is so sensitive to those who are struggling and in poverty, to try to just the challenges that those in poverty are up against. I watched all the different challenges my mother faced and the fear of her making decisions over, putting, and the embarrassment of putting $5 of gas in the car because that's all she could afford at the time. And that is a big part of why I have so much empathy for those who, the judgment that comes from those that, have never experienced poverty. It's easy to have an opinion, but like what's Mike Tyson's famous quote, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And in my experience, when you have to live in poverty, and I watched my mother struggle, it made me now to this day sensitive in ways that I don't know that I would have been otherwise. And that's a big part of why I wanted this platform, to just highlight what they're up to, because if you're in deep poverty and you have to survive a really challenging neighborhood, you bet you're going to be tempted to go into a gang just to keep yourself safe, never mind your family. And unless there's other alternative options, which rarely happen because a lot of the corporate world doesn't give options to those who are finding themselves in that situation, it's really hard to find yourself on the other side of it. So that's part of why I have you, here, Tom, because I want you to speak about that, how it's just about opening up our eyes across entrepreneurs, across businesses, to start to see that we're all in this together.
Oh, yeah, boy, I don't think I can say it better than the way you just said it. And it's that's what I've come to learn. I was 26 years a corporate guy and now 10 years being in this nonprofit space. And look, it's no great insight, but there are two Americas out there, the America that we all live in and America that poor live in. And the struggles of just trying to get a decent job, of trying to get an apartment, of trying to get health care, trying to get dental care, trying to get banking, it goes on and on and on and on. And we're one of the richest nations in the world. We should be like that. And it's how do you do things differently? And I think what Homeboy has shown is their approach. It's a philosophical approach to people, and it's also bringing resources to help them move their life forward.
Yeah. And also just some of what Homeboy's success, you can't create that level of success, tripling its success rate, if that old standard of not, treating people decently, like you're proving to all of capitalism that you can be a conscious capitalist, that you can make a profit and still make a difference, that they're not separate. And that's also what's so impressive, in my opinion, about Homeboy, is that you guys are proving it every day.
Yeah, and the struggle is each week we interview new people to become part of our program. Again, we have 400 people in our paid program, another 100 workers on top of that. Each week we interview about 15. Last week we interviewed 17 people. It's just the way the churn works, the numbers. We can only hire one or two of those 15 people. So what keeps driving me forward is how do we kind of make it bigger so we don't have to turn away 13 of the 15. We can serve 10 of the 15 along the way. And it's interesting. That's what keeps me fired up going. If you ever talk to Father Greg, he doesn't care how many people we serve. It's like who's standing in front of him today, and what are we going to do for that person? Yeah. is the important way of going about it.
And for any businesses that are listening to us, just around the financial aspect, you talk a lot about your desire for there to be an endowment. Please just, do that pitch, because I hope there will be a leader or a company that perhaps is in a position financially to really donate in a significant way. What, Tom, are the ways they could do that to potentially be a contribution to you?
Yeah, certainly if you go to our webpage, homeboyindustries.org, there's lots of content on there for you to learn more about Homeboy. We have Twitter, we have Instagram, but for sure, I mean, we've existed and still exist on the immense generosity of donors, because most folks understand that they've had a mentor in life, they've had a second chance, and most entrepreneurs who've done well, and they come to Homeboy and they see that we're doing the same just in a different realm, and they also see that, boy, we're pretty bare bones, and we get right at it. It's not like there's a big infrastructure around what we do. It's like their money gets put to use to help as many people as possible. And I'm always, since I'm talking to a business audience, I'm always looking for business help along the way. It's our folks are really, they have an innate sense of business and leadership, and if we just need to bring in some more of the skill sets of how to run a formal business, that's so very important. And it sounds like we're ending, but I do want to make one last mention. The other thing we're very proud of at Homeboy, I'm proud of, is over half of our management team are former clients and people with lived experience. And so, when you think about diversity and equity in leadership, we put a big effort on having people with lived experience grow from within. And it's my dream and Father Greg's dream that someday Homeboy will be run by homeboys. And there's a lot of lessons to be learned what it takes to kind of develop people who've never been in the formal workplace, but how do you move them up the ladder because they have great ability and loyalty and skills. And from a business perspective, there's no better workforce out there. I'll put my workforce up against anybody else's as we go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's such a beautiful point. And I liken it to, culture is just like a language. Just because you don't know how to speak a language when you're in a foreign country doesn't mean you're not smart. It just means you have to learn the language. Every culture, work culture, just has a language. And if you give people the tools to learn that language, the cultural language, their brilliance gets an opportunity to shine. And that's what it feels like you're really asking corporate America to consider. Like,
Yep.
okay, maybe they don't have experience in your corporate culture, but hell, if they've survived prison, if they've survived poverty, if they've survived rival gangs, they clearly are strategically
Totally.
very
Absolutely
smart
true.
people.
They're survivors, without a doubt. They
They're
got that instinct.
survivors.
Yep. Mhm.
They're going to be able to be as crafty and creative at strategy and big picture thinking as anybody who's been in the trenches of the corporate world.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Yeah. All right. Well, Tom, thank you so much. Before we hang up, any questions here among our listeners, please just raise your hand and I can unmute your mic. And obviously, Skip, if you have any questions, but does anybody have a question direct for Tom about Homeboy or about, just your own journey that you want to share in this conversation? Feel free to raise your hand and I can let you have the mic. We have a small, quiet group, apparently.
Well, you have one person that's not that quiet. So let me
Good.
add one
Go
thing
for it,
that
Skip.
I learned reading Tom's book, which is one of the few books I recommend people in business read. Approximately 70% of the people that sort of voluntarily go through there don't go back. They go on to some sort of life that doesn't involve gangs, which I think is, I know for a poker player that's a hella statistic, and I think for what you guys do, that's pretty phenomenal. And it's amazing work you guys are doing. Rich people out there, support them, please.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. Any other questions or statements or just comments that anybody here wants to share? Just raise your hand and I can let you guys. Oh, requested. Great. Thanks, Del. How you doing, Del? Hope you're doing good, Del. Hopefully you can speak now. I just unmuted you. Yes, Del. How you doing?
Hi, Kim. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Just it's more of a statement, but I just wanted to thank you and appreciate for all of the great content and the diversity of the material that you provide on the podcast and on the spaces or here, and really wanted to appreciate Tom, what you have done and what you're doing. I was just reading since the podcast or spaces started. I was reading about Homeboy, but it's such a great thing to just put people back in course. It's not just about guiding them from the beginning. Sometimes we just being sheared away from the the goal, our goal in life, and then great people like you putting us back in course. It's a great thing to do. I just wanted to say, well, virtually, and appreciate for all of the great work.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much, Tyler.
No, thank you for the comments. And it's listen, I'm talking a lot about Homeboy, but a lot of men and women who make that place happen. It's Greg's vision, and I just see myself as a messenger back to the business world about what's happening at Homeboy, and people need to learn more about it.
Well, if anybody that listens at all to any of my work knows I'm an advocate for conscious capitalism, and I feel Homeboy is just such an emulation of what conscious capitalism really looks like, especially the success that Tom has driven in that company for this last 10 years. And thank you, Del, for being so kind and generous. If you do want more of this kind of content, which usually is focused for traders and investors, please go to my website, thewallstreetcoach.com. I have a podcast that we usually release every other week. We're a little behind because I recently went to the Traders for Cause conference, and Traders for Cause, I just wanted to give another shout out to them because their conference is specifically about encouraging enrolling traders and investors in giving back, being a contribution. Traders for Cause conference is a powerful place, but it also is trying to encourage and teach traders how to give back, how to be a contribution, and how that can be so fulfilling. I mean, Nate talks about the impact that different causes he's supported has just brought him so much joy. And so that's a big part of why I wanted to do this conversation with Tom Vozzo, because I love Homeboy Industries. They're one of my favorite organizations for me to donate to, and I really hope I'm able to donate even more in the future. And a big part of the reason I love Homeboy Industries is because of just, even though my journey is radically different than those who are the clients of Homeboy, the common denominator I do have is understanding how bad poverty can be, watching my mother really struggle with poverty in my youth, and my sensitivity to knowing how like one, flat tire can just have a domino effect on so many things, her not being able to go to work, not making enough money that month, and for us to have food or electricity. We didn't have a phone for a long time because the phone had to get cut off. And I just see, when I read Tom's book and I read Father Greg Boyle's book, Tattoos on the Heart, how, that was bad enough just experiencing that in my little bit of childhood, but I didn't have to deal with gang violence. And I can see just like how hard it is to get a leg up. And that's what I hope everybody on this call, at the very minimum, just starts to see how we can just start to build kinship with people who perhaps we think are different than us, whether it's in multitude of departments, we are more common, our pains are more common than we are different. And that's ultimately what I hope you guys walk away from at a minimum. And if you're able to support Homeboy, even with a small donation, they have on their website places you can put even just a small donation to what their mission is. And if you want to read an excellent book, read Tom's book, because it's really inspiring. And also, I love Tattoos on the Heart by Father Greg Boyle. So anything I didn't say that I should have, as we wrap this up, Tom, anything that I should have pointed to? What question did I not ask you that I should have?
Oh my gosh, we can talk for hours about Homeboy, and if you want to have me back a second time, I'm willing to do it. But
that would be great.
Listen, it's I've learned so much. I feel so blessed to have this part of my life, and I can't speak more highly of the organization. So thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, it's beautiful to have had you here. Any last questions, guys, before we sign off? Thank you, Del, for asking questions, Skip, for participating in this conversation, and for the time you're giving to Homeboy by just hanging out and just being in the conversation. I'm so grateful to you for doing that and for sharing it, that you're, in LA, close to it. Anybody else have a question before we close this up? Looks like we don't. We have all quiet listeners. Thanks everybody for being here. If you like this conversation, you'll be able to retweet it. Please do if you think it's of value to people. And then the podcast, I got to do 30 minutes with Tom before we came to Twitter Space. That will probably go out next week at some point on the YouTube channel. Everywhere you get podcasts, you'll see the Wall Street Coach be out there with this full podcast, which will be a little bit over an hour long. So there's some content that you didn't get here that Tom gave me in the video portion. Thank you, everybody, for coming to this. Please, again, at least send Juju to Homeboy. And Tom, thank you so much for all your time this morning.
Thank you.
Very grateful to you.
Thank you.